The Department of Finance, as the head of the Economic Development Cluster, of course, are very much concerned on how we provide sound economic policies as well as environment to provide a healthy environment for mothers as well as young Filipinos. So why we are actually pushing for legislation to ban and eventually regulate single-use plastics is because we recognize that 7 out of 10 rivers that are the top polluters of our oceans are from the Philippines. And on average, we have 4.8 to 7.7 million tons of plastic leaked into our oceans globally. And as an archipelago, most of our rural folks and our people that are below the poverty line depend on, for example, fisheries and other livelihoods for their sustenance. And if, our waters are not clean, our source of food is not clean as well, then we cannot ensure that we will have young and healthy Filipinos in the future. So this is what we are mostly concerned of. We do recognize that everyone is affected with the plastic pollution, but we also want to highlight that in terms, for example, of disasters and other climate impacts, it is mostly the women and children that are affected more heavily. So that is why we also want to include gender in terms of providing, for example, policies that would support mainstreaming insurance, mainstreaming social protection, because there are issues that previously, when we did not know what gender was, when we did not know how to address specific issues of women, they were not really given the ample support that they require. So for example, you have women that cannot give birth in proper areas because there is no a clean source of water, or the food that they ingest, like fisheries, they also have microplastics within them, so they actually ingest that. So these are issues that are very serious, especially for economic development. In the Philippines alone, a majority, or the average age of our voting population, is 25. And these compose of your millennials and your Gen Z, those who have the most at stake in terms of your climate crisis, in terms of electing the officials who would take charge and making action towards change, for example. So I think the first thing that we need to do is to ask everyone to register so you can vote. I think this is the initial step. Secondly, I think the youth can take more action by being more active, for example, by using the different platforms in social media that are now available that were decades ago not available. Like nobody knew how to speak out. Nobody knew how to engage people. Nobody knew how to have their thoughts heard internationally. And I think this is good because even in the Philippines, one of the things that we should be proud of is that we rank 17th out of 156 in terms of countries with gender inclusiveness in the Global Gender Gap 2021 report. And this is a good thing. In the DOF alone, 8 out of our 12 undersecretaries and assistant secretaries are women. So in the Philippines, being a women leader is not something new. It's something that I grew up in. It's something that I knew from the time that I was born. But that's not the case in all countries. It's only in the Philippines that we first had our first woman president in the 1980s. And this is something that's not even achieved in other countries, for example, like the United States. It's never been. So it's something that we should be proud of, but at the same time, we should also be more aware on what our voices can do, what we put our energy into. And I think it's not just the women who should take lead. I think the youth in general should take the lead because it's their future that's at stake. And I think if all of your youth demand, for example, in social media of the reforms that they want, I think those who are running for elective office would think twice if they wouldn't listen to a majority of their voting population. And I think that's something that we need to put out there as leaders and as government officials for everyone, to listen and to give a voice on what's happening, especially in the climate change arena.